are joined now by Trevor Sikkema of PewterReport.com. Trevor, first of all, and these are always this weekend's. It's a situation's fluid for every team in the league, including the Bucs. But when we wake up Monday morning, do we have a practice squad or a couple of guys that you know that will be on the practice squad here?
Yeah, there were a lot of changes around the NFL, obviously, and I know that fans, they see these players get cut from other teams. They're like, oh, what about the Buccaneers? Could they be interested in them? We were told that the Buccaneers actually did not put any waiver claims around the league. So they were focused on those 90 guys that they had here in training camp. They wanted to get some of those younger guys back as their practice squad guys. They didn't want to bring anybody in. Bubba Wilson is one of them. He was a guy who was kind of a fringe guy. You weren't sure if he was going to make the roster. Pat O'Connor as well. Those are kind of the big highlight guys that made the practice squad that they're probably going to highlight as the year goes on as potential guys to bring up in the roster maybe later in the year.
And Trevor, Saturday, the roster moves obviously from 90 to 53. Any big surprises there as far as who didn't make this Bucs team?
Yeah, it was sort of quiet initially. You know, kind of the expected is, okay, the guys that you kind of just figured that they were there for camp, but then a couple veteran guys. Keith Tandy is one of them.
Yes.
Josh Robinson's another one. I mean, we saw a special teams play from Josh Robinson even in the last preseason game, and you go, you know, that guy's kind of a corner safety hybrid. You don't really know what to do with him, but that's why he's on the team. Now he's not on the team. You know, that was a big shock that they were. Now they're going to try to groom one of those younger guys to be a special teams ace. And so the same thing with Keith Tandy. He's been around here a while. 2016, he had a great starting run once they had some injuries. And so that was kind of a shock. They're going with their younger guys, though. They're trusting the players that they drafted, and they're going to roll with the young guys.
Well, here we go. It's week one. Ready or not?
Finally.
If you're a Bucs fan sitting at home, and there were reasons to be very excited during the preseason watching this team, particularly the core players, give me one reason why you think, man, this could really be something to watch here starting right away in New Orleans.
I think play calling is different. And I don't know how much of it necessarily is Todd Monken versus Dirk Cutter, because I know that, you know, Cutter has said they come up with the game plan themselves. You know, they all collectively come up with it, but they look good. They looked in rhythm, whether it was Jameis Winston or Ryan Fitzpatrick, whoever was in there. They looked in rhythm with a lot of these wide receivers. And you saw, yeah, the Buccaneers kind of blew a couple of leads in the preseason late in the game, but when those first teamers were in, they were playing well. They were dominating. And so you've got to think that's the encouraging part, especially from an offensive side. They've invested so much money, so many resources into the offensive side of the ball, and it's got to kind of come to fruition. Like, this is the year. I know it's a hot seat year for a lot of different people, but they've got the horses, as you will say, to win the race, or at least to get down to the finish line, I think.
And to wrap up here, is there anything that you saw or didn't see in the preseason that still kind of leaves you questioning a certain position group heading into that week one date with the Saints?
Well, I think it's both sides of the trenches a little bit. The offensive line, not really their fault. They had a couple injuries. They have not, that starting five, that best five, as Dirk Cutter would say, they haven't all been out there at the same time. And so you're definitely looking for that. But on the defensive side, too, they, again, put a lot of resources into revamping that defensive line. They got to get sacks. That was the big thing that we talked about last year. They've got to get sacks in 2018, and it's got to start right away.
Is that one of the things you think in week one, we go up against Drew Brees right away? Are you excited to see this defensive line not just get a couple of series in, but have to carry that out throughout the game, maybe get some momentum itself?
I am excited to see a Brenson Buckner coached group get their chance against Drew Brees in New Orleans. Man, it's going to be a lot of fun. So, yes, I'm very excited to see that defensive line in New Orleans.
And as far as injuries go, obviously Vita Vea didn't play. Vernon Hargrave still kind of dealing with that injury. Do we know where they're at this point heading into the first week?
You know, Kendall Beckwith was the only one who was like, oh, okay, maybe he'll be ready for week one. He starts on the physically unable to perform list. He won't be available for the first 6 weeks. But nobody else looked that banged up. And so you've got to think, you've got to take Dirk Cutter at his word when he said there weren't too many serious injuries. Most of those guys might be ready to play week one, week two at the latest. And so that's what I've got to take going forward, that most of them are relatively healthy.